everybody, welcome back to Listen, I Have an Idea. My name is Heidi and today is day 5 of BOOKTUBEATHON. I can't believe we are well over halfway. This is crazy. The week has gone by so quickly. Okay, since it's day 4, I figured I'd update you guys on my reading progress so far. And today I finished book 3. I know I'm really far behind, but I finished Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour and it was amazing. It was so good. It's honestly all I've been thinking about all day. It's so good. I highly, highly recommend it to any of you who want to read it. I didn't film any vlog footage today, but I figured I would just jump right on into the challenges, and I am so excited for the challenges today. The challenge for today is to create a book list based off of a theme. So any kind of theme, the way I've interpreted it is to create a book list that you would put together and teach almost as if you were teaching a university or college course. So for me, I've actually taken 2 university courses that deal with popular narrative and popular adaptation. Now for the one course, we actually read this book, The Cambridge Companion to Popular Fiction, and it was really interesting. It is a university textbook, so I don't know if it's widely available, but it was really interesting to see how the different type of narrative forms that come in all different types, whether it be fiction, nonfiction, comic books, TV, movies, all of that, how they're all related and influence the popular and mass culture's ideals of society. And so for me, the course that I took is a popular adaptation course where we studied a wide variety of adaptations surrounding Frankenstein. So we read Frankenstein and we watched a ton of movies and read a ton of books that all are basically adaptations of Frankenstein, such as AI, Artificial Intelligence, adaptation. We watched Frankenweenie, The Munsters, Ender's Game, I, Frankenstein, and we read a few other books that I can't remember, but essentially everything that we watched and read in that course was an adaptation of Frankenstein. So I figured for my book list, I would like to center it around the actual essay that I wrote for both of those courses. I wrote 2 separate essays on the same topic, and the adaptation of the really old text, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Now, at the time when I took these courses, I was watching the web series, The Lizzie Bennet Diaries, and that is really what drove me to want to talk about this topic. And my list is not just books, it's also some films as well. So I figured I would start off with not only the original Pride and Prejudice, but the entire series that got me into that, and that is the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. This is a web series, it's not a book. However, they did end up writing a book called The Secret Diary of Lizzie Bennet, and this book is amazing. It's so good. It's essentially a modern adaptation of Pride and Prejudice set in modern day times, and it's super cute and I love it, and I wish the series would come back because I miss it so much. The other ones that I would watch and read for the course, of course, is Pride and Prejudice, the movie that came out in 2005, and the mini BBC series that came out in 1995. The other modern text that I would love to discuss for this course would be 2 separate types. The first one would be young adult novels, and the second one would be adult romance novels. So for the young adult category, of course, you got to start off with a classic, and that is Twilight. I lost the cover for this, but this is Twilight. For this book, I talk about the relationship between Bella and Edward and how fast-paced it was, as well as the turmoil that is caused because of their relationship. That's a huge theme within the original Pride and Prejudice, is that Lizzie Bennet's status isn't as welcomed as, say, William Darcy, who makes $10,000 a year. So I would love to explore that topic, as well as not only the relationship between them, but also the relationship between the parents and the kids as well. Pride and Prejudice, Mrs. Bennet has a huge influence on what her daughters do. And in this book, you can kind of see that the parents, Mr. Swan, Charlie Swan, and then Carlisle and Esme, they have a huge influence on what the kids do in this book. And so that would be an interesting theme to kind of study for this one. Other books that are very similar that I would love to study. First off, Shadowland by Meg Cabot in the Mediator series. This is one of my favorite series of all time, so of course I'd want to study it. It's about a girl who could see ghosts and lives with a boy who is a ghost in her room. And there's a huge status clash because he's 150 years old and she is 16, living in modern times. So for this one, it'd be a nice quick read, and I would love to study this in relation to Pride and Prejudice. The other one, this isn't the actual book that I would study. I'd probably study Anne and the French Kiss, but I don't have that one. I only have Lola and the Boy Next Door, and I would like to talk about this one as the modern teen romance book because it does follow the same themes. It's about a girl who's in Paris, very unfamiliar surroundings, falling in love with a boy, and just going through all of those teenager problems, different problems than what Lizzie and Darcy faced in Pride and Prejudice, but still very interesting and captivating. The two books in the other section of the course that I would teach is modern adult romance books. Now for this, I've picked two very popular ones. I wouldn't necessarily read these exact books, but books by these authors. So the first one is, of course, Nicholas Sparks. This one's The Longest Ride. I don't think I would read The Notebook for this series. I'd pick one of his other obscure novels. The Longest Ride is actually a really good example because it has it follows two separate couples, an older couple and then a younger couple, and it's really interesting to see how the status of the older couple's relationship when they were young compared to the younger couple in current present day in the book. There's definitely a status clash, and it's written okay. It's not the most beautiful, well thought out book I've ever read, but it's really interesting to see how these modern romances relate to the text and what you can see, the motifs that are in Pride and Prejudice. The other one that I would read is a Nora Roberts book. I love Nora Roberts. That is why I would put one of her books on the reading list for this course. This one's The Next Always. It's probably not the book I would read by her, but this series is really good because you find that all of her books, especially in these trilogies, they rely heavily on the couples relying on one another and needing things from each other. Very similar to how in Pride and Prejudice, when Lizzie doesn't necessarily need Darcy's help, but he ends up helping her anyways, and it makes her life a lot easier. In these books, you find that the couples are heavily relying on one another, and it makes for an interesting story, but it also kind of drags out, and it doesn't necessarily help the plot in all the ways. So those are the books that I would study for my course. I hope you guys enjoyed that list. There are kind of random books, but I really think that they are a good list. Of course, if I were teaching a class on this topic, I would pick different books as well. But for right now, the books that I have on hand, those are the ones that I would pick. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow with day 6 of BookTubeathon. Until then, happy reading. Bye!